Welcome to the Global News Podcast from the BBC. Hello, I'm Oliver Conway. And today we're joined by Dale Johnson, our football issues correspondent. And Dale, the World Cup kicks off today, the biggest ever, but is it the most controversial? Well, first of all, take us through the scale of this tournament.
Well, yeah, it's the biggest tournament we've ever had in the World Cup. There's going to be 48 teams playing 104 matches. Used to be only 32 teams taking part. It's over 3 countries, and it's going to be really quite a complicated tournament to organise, but also to watch and to follow. Certainly, if you're not in the United States, if you're in Europe, where a lot of the games are being played overnight. So it's really quite unprecedented, certainly on scale and the size and the number of games.
It's also the first time that the hosts have been at war with one of the participants. I'm talking, of course, about the US and Iran. President Trump launching that war despite winning the FIFA Peace Prize. That's going to make things difficult, isn't it?
It is, yeah, and obviously there's not just the Iran situation in terms of what happened after the FIFA Peace Prize. There was also the attack on Venezuela and the capture of the people in the power there. So it's been a case of, since that Peace Prize, there's been quite a few incidents which really have brought that into question. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens on that front.
Yeah, take us through the logistics facing the Iranian team. They've claimed that some of their staff haven't got visas. They've had to move their base.
Yes, so at one stage we didn't really know whether Iran would really take part, and Gianni Infantino, the FIFA president, has gone on record in his press conference last night to say that it would have been impossible to get them to the tournament without him, but there are real issues. The team are not allowed to stay in the United States. They're having to stay in Tijuana, which is just over the border in Mexico, and then they're only getting permission to fly in and out of the games 24 hours either side of the match. And like you say, there's been 15 members of the delegation who've been refused visas for the United States, so they will not be able to go to the games. And then, of course, you have the big issue that Iran are not yet in the United States. Until they get through border control and get to the game, then we can't be absolutely certain that immigration are going to let them into the country.
Yeah, it's not only the Iranian team that might have difficulties getting in. Some fans have had their visas denied, and even a World Cup referee.
Yeah, so we were just hearing earlier today that the Ivory Coast fans have been told they will not be allowed to enter the US. So those fans that were going to arrive around 500 to go to their games will not now be arriving. But certainly the most controversial aspect is Omar Artan, who is a Somalian referee. He's the #1 referee in Africa. He was supposed to be refereeing at this tournament, but when he arrived at Miami Airport earlier this week, immigration spoke to him for 11 hours and interrogated him, and they decided that he should not be allowed permission to enter the United States. And so when you have one of FIFA's own officials, one of their own employees, who cannot get through immigration, then you can understand why supporters and anybody else who's coming from outside the United States may have fears about actually getting into the country.
Yeah, you might have thought that Gianni Infantino, given his close relationship with President Trump, might have been able to have a word to get that referee in.
Oh, exactly, yeah. He said in his press conference last night that it was just unfortunate that the Somali referee couldn't get into the country. I think the referee would probably have liked a few more words about his career and how he'd earned the chance to referee at the World Cup and for the pinnacle of his career, but instead he's had to go back onto the plane. Now, Gianni Infantino says they're not kings of the world. They can't override the decisions that are made by governments and immigration authorities, but it just seems a bit strange that you've got somebody that's one of the essentially integral part of this World Cup refereeing matches, and they couldn't guarantee that he could get into the country.
Now, we've also seen national sides being searched as they head into the US. Uzbekistan and their manager, Italian superstar Fabio Cannavaro, also the Senegalese team. Now, both those sides have said these are routine searches, but it all adds to the noise surrounding the tournament.
It does add to the noise, but there was actually, when Belgium played 2 games in the United States in March, they were shown having in these exact same pictures on the tarmac. So I think it was Atlanta Airport, if I remember correctly. So that shows that it's not just a case of the African countries or Asian countries being picked on because of it. It's actually what their policy is in terms of the immigration, when somebody's getting a private jet and doesn't have to go through the 2 hours queues for for passport control and security control. But let's just take the Iraqi striker who was also questioned for 9 or 10 hours before he was allowed to enter the United States. And let's also remember that so far there are only 29 teams that have entered the United States. There's potentially another 19 that need to enter. Some of them may not enter for another week or two, or maybe not until the knockout stages. So this story certainly isn't over just because the World Cup is about to kick off.
And of course, the fans who are in the United States might bump into immigration agents in the stadiums. ICE, of course, very controversial over the killings of those 2 US citizens in Minneapolis. What will fans face in the stadiums?
There's a lot of apprehension, I think, amongst fans. It's certainly in terms of the 4 teams who are representing, who have supporters who should be banned from flying into the US, the likes of Haiti, Iran and Senegal among them. So I think there's a fear that when their games come around, it's of course Haiti versus Scotland on Saturday, there's a fear that the ICE might turn up at the stadium and look to round up some of their supporters.
And talking of the fans, there have been plenty of complaints about the price of tickets. What's been going on there?
Yeah, well, it's been going on since the prices came out in December, really. They've just been astronomical, certainly compared to the Qatar World Cup, where they've been 2 times more expensive for the group stage, going up to 7 times more expensive for the knockout stages, and then the World Cup, where it's $8,000 for the cheapest World Cup ticket for the final. And it's just people don't feel like they can afford this. Now, Gianni Infantino in his press conference again defended the ticket prices, again said it's because of the US market, and again said that they have to charge a price which brings in the money. And he says we should be getting the money that we deserve, rather than this going to the secondary market, which is the resale market, which FIFA has its own platform for, of course. So FIFA claim they're doing the right thing, so this money can be redistributed around world football, whereas I think a lot of football fans just feel they've been fleeced in terms of the amount of money it's costing them to get into the World Cup games.
Looking at the economy, Gianni Infantino said the World Cup would be the equivalent of having 3 Super Bowls a day, and yet there are reports that hotel bookings are down, flights are down. So will this be the bonanza that the Americans might be hoping for?
Well, the American Hotel Association released a report a few weeks ago where they said that the hotel bookings were way below what they were anticipating, and they blamed a few things on that. One of them was FIFA for reserving far too many rooms. 70% of the block bookings FIFA have made have been cancelled, and they said what this caused was the prices which were unjustified because it created demand which just wasn't there, and that just means that supporters have been put off travelling to this World Cup for 2 reasons. You've got the ticket prices and you've got the hotel prices, and you've also got the political backdrop in terms of just not feeling welcome in making the trip. So all these hoteliers felt that in terms of making this a successful World Cup, for that economic boom they were promised to happen, what they needed was international travellers, and because of the whole situation around all those aspects, those international travellers aren't going to arrive, the hotel rooms aren't going to be filled, and the local economies are not going to get the uplift that FIFA said they were going to receive.
Now, of course, this World Cup is being hosted by 3 nations, Canada and Mexico as well. The first game taking place in Mexico, and there were some fears that it could be disrupted by protests.
Yes, there's been a lot of protests in Mexico in recent weeks and months, basically about the situation in the country. There was a protest outside the Azteca Stadium where the game is being played on Thursday, with messages and placards saying FIFA go home. So there's a real feeling that due to the drug group wars that are going on and the unrest in Mexico, that the World Cup really isn't welcome in Mexico. But as we've seen in many tournaments, we saw it in Brazil as well with this type of situation, in the end the show goes on, and FIFA will try their best to make sure that these games go on without any disruption.
Well, yeah, there have been controversial World Cups before, recently Qatar, Russia, and once the games start, people tend to forget the controversies. Do you think it could be the same this time?
I think there are 2 aspects to consider here. I think firstly, we have not had a World Cup before where the administration in charge seem to have been so unwilling to make concessions to make the tournament go smoothly. I think on this occasion we've seen so many things happen where you think, despite the political talk beforehand, it's not going to turn around. For instance, we talked about ICE, the fact that it's just not going to, that's not going to go away. There are going to be more stories that are going to be talked about in terms of how the government has handled this.
Dale, thank you very much. Dale Johnson there, the BBC's football issues correspondent. If you'd like to hear more from the Global News podcast, click the link below. Thanks for watching.